All right, perfect. So from now on, I'm all ears.
Yep, understand. Okay. Okay, G6, I'm just gonna, black gives you a center, take the center. Okay, nothing spectacular. Um, eh. Okay, so this is dragon stuff, or, well, hyper accelerated. Um, okay, normal. Oh, I say normal, I guess. It's not going into a perk, which normally happens with the G6. So that's gone. Okay, we see knight f3, or not, I'm sorry, knight f6, knight c6. Those are moves that I'd probably play d6. I think knight here faster. Okay, a6, want to stop that. So, okay, I'm going to play bishop here first. Knight's not out, so I don't have to worry about an f3. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just play f3 then. It's an idea. Okay, so we're just transposing. I don't want b5 played, so I'm going to play a4. It just makes it easier for me. I'm going to go here. I'm very tempted to castle kingside, which I know is going to be a little bit slower, but I've already weakened my queen side by stopping this move. So when I play bishop c4, it's not an issue for me. So I think bishop c4, castles kingside, and then I think I want to get his knight off of d5, so that's the plan. Bishop c4, if he plays knight b6, which I think is going to be the move. Well, e5 is also a possible move here, but then I've got knight here, and then here, and then I can push. Okay, so that would be, if that, yeah. So that's e5, knight back to e2, knight g3, pushing. That would be my strategy. His strategy, not sure yet, because this knight doesn't have many squares unless he wants to move backwards. This knight b6 is good if he can secure c5 is a good square for that knight. c5 is a really good square for that knight. Targets this pawn. Maybe he could get some pressure working with a well-timed e6, d5. Okay, queen c7. Okay. I think I'll just drop the bishop back. Yeah, I figured that was coming. Target the bishop. I can give up the bishop for the knight. That's not an issue. I know I should care about the pawns, but well, knight goes back to here. Still getting around, so let's take this. Because knight's coming right back into the center, so I'm not ruining my pawn structure. Okay, bishop there. That pawn's weak, but I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this bishop, because that's a good bishop if I ever let it come to its potential. Okay, so we're going to just trade that off. Well, he takes, I take, okay, that is not on the cards. Okay, let's get off the diagonal because that would allow the exchange stack. Do you not want to deal with that? Playing on the king side, that's not something that happens. Okay, targeting that pawn, that's good. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to get anything. Okay, well, they're biting on bullets for now, so let's go ahead and just get at that bishop. It's protected, not an issue. So it's bishop versus a knight for our extra minor piece, for our second minor piece. just keep the position where I am. H5, okay, just solid. Oh, that's fine. I don't like that knight there. I want to see if I can... No, but then that allows that. So let's play... Well, if I'm going to do that, I have to get rid of his bishop. Okay, so we're going to get rid of the bishop. That actually means he's going to take... Yeah, he takes with the queen. That's what I would have played. Okay. I really want d5. Gives up a pawn, though. So this rook's kind of useless where he sits. So let's put the rook here. That way when I play knight d5, I can actually bolster my center and have this. Maybe I can play on the queen side. That might actually be a plan. Okay, so really want d5, but at the same time, I can't play g4, g5, and h3 for that is just kind of silly and it weakens my king. So I think that book is kind of passed. b4 is a plan. Oh, is it a plan? No, it's not a plan because b4 just loses the knight, so maybe a5 to stop this permanently and also fix the queen side. It might be a plan. Then he's got a5 himself. Still, if he doesn't play it, I think that should be a move. a5 queen here. That's actually a good plan. a5 queen e3. Maybe trade off the queens. I think I have a better endgame, just because of reasons. Oh, then again, that would be double pawns, but I'm just running this one up behind, and it's actually not a terrible plan. Okay. Never did get to attack d6, but, you know, I'm not going to complain. d6 is typically weak. I should have been focusing on that as well. Okay. Wants to trade the queens like that. Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. Yeah, I take with the rook too. Okay, knight here, d4 and f4 are good squares. Okay, so he wants to do that. Let's have him bite on a bullet here. Then we go here, here. These are some good squares. Actually, this is a weak square, so d4 looked like the best square for my knight. It's got b3, it can go to from here. This pawn's, d4 gets kicked back, same thing with f4. So I think I should focus on targeting this pawn on d6. So that's weak. I'm not sure how weak. Okay, he wants to take on b2. That's okay. Expected. Let's go ahead and just play this. So rook here. Well, it is. Actually, that rook is. Well, it's not trapped, but it's close to trapped. Matter of fact, knight d4 here. That rook is trapped. Yeah, well, expected that. So we're going to play f4. He takes, I take. I'm still good. Yeah, okay, so take, okay, expected. Now, how do I Okay, that's one square. A3. Yeah, a knight on A3. That's a good square for the knight. Okay, how do I get to A3? Okay, so we're going to go G1 to F3 to D2. Okay. Well, we also attack this pawn, so if he does trade the rook, or when we trade rooks, and I've got a passer, so okay, we're going to protect our passer. Let's get my king active too. Okay, let's go ahead and take that. I know it gives him a passer, but I think that's fine, especially in an endgame. And with the amount of time I have on the clock, I think I'm fine. Okay, so we're going to play... I think I have to play this. Take with rook, take. Yeah. Okay. And I think my king can protect that. Okay. Yeah, okay, I expected that. Worst case, I can sack my knight for one of those pawns, or for one or both of them. I think I'm fine. And I can pick up tempos if he steps in certain areas. I'd almost want to say this is a draw. Okay. Let's keep my king here. Should I play h4 here? Okay. Let's go ahead and get a check in just to make it quick. Just going to go there. I'm going to play here. 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 I'll just go ahead and offer a draw here. Okay. Understand that. Let's go ahead and give the check there. Wait, is that mate? No, clearly not. Why did I think that was mate? Okay, we're going to play that. Maybe I should have taken... Oh, wow. Wow. Well, that's game. That was game. Yeah, that's game.
Okay, let's take a look. This was a really interesting game, you know. Let me.
Yeah, I agree. I was tempted to try and get some play on your king, but I just didn't. I thought you actually played it very well.
Now we're gonna go there. So
Yep.
we're starting with e4. Nothing extremely crazy. You said I've been playing e4 for 3 years. I think it's gonna be okay if I play e4 one more time. I think it's okay. So I think that was fun. G6, d4, bishop g7. Nothing extremely crazy yet. I actually do not play this variant. I have never played g6 and bishop g7, but I thought it was fun. So just to see how do you react to these positions. So bishop g7, knight c3, perfect. c5, you said, well, let's get into Sicilian now. And funny enough, I do play Sicilians, but I do not play dragons. So
Yeah.
so now I am into a dragon, and I do not study especially dragons. So
I will tell you, from what I know, this is one where you don't need as much theory.
oh yeah, because moves should be more or less the same than in other positions, but sometimes you have to be careful with these f3s, bishop e3s, queen d2, castling towards the queen side. I've studied this for a while, but it is not like my variant, right? I've seen some games on this end, and it's hard because then suddenly I have to attack with e5, rook c8, and try to do something about this, but it's dangerous. So
The exchange sack on c3.
oh yeah, sometimes I trade the rook for the knight on c3 so that I can create some debilities on your pawn structure or get some advantages and try to open this diagonal and whatever. So that's some of the ideas that I had. I was thinking, whoa, I've seen the game, but I have seen the games before, but I do not know the theories. So I was like, whoa, well, whatever. So I'm gonna play this, bishop d3, knight f6. I'm not quite sure if knight f6 here, e5, because I do not have knight g4, right?
Yeah, e5, knight g4, and...
No, but I cannot do that.
Oh, yeah, queen.
Yeah, I realized after I played knight f6.
Okay. Actually, no, you're fine there because... No, you have to play knight c6 first.
Yeah, or d6, I guess. And I realized this after I just moved, and I thought, well, dude, I maybe made a mistake here. Because now after e5, then you're getting some space, and I have to go back, almost.
You have to go back, otherwise your knight's just silly.
Yeah, so I thought, well, maybe after f4 I have to play e6, and the position doesn't look like that. I mean, in my mind the position didn't look like that, and I thought, whoa, I made a horrible mistake here. Fortunately, you played f3, which is more or less normal.
I honestly thought knight g4 was a threat, same as you.
Knight d4 often happens, right? And in many lines of the Sicilian. And that's kind of annoying, but people usually play like bishop c1 and they win a tempo with f3 or something, and they come back. That's a way to play it.
Yeah.
In this case, it wasn't possible because of the queen taking it, but in this position I was a little bit afraid of e5 because I thought, whoa, I just missed it. And then when you played f3, then I said, well, now I have the hits and I am avoiding that. So I felt alright here. a4. You said you didn't want me to play b5. I think that's cool. During the opening, there is not a lot to say yet because it was more or less normal, right? So
honestly, I think this is actually book position.
Yeah, this should be some line on theory actually, because even if this is not the theory as it is supposed to be, this should be a transposition. Nothing extremely crazy yet. So queen d2. Yeah, the ideas here of playing bishop h6 are kind of dangerous sometimes. I was thinking that maybe rook e8 was an idea here, so that when you play bishop h6, then I had bishop h8 and avoid these trades here. But I thought, well, now I'm just gonna finish my development and look for...
That is an idea. Another idea is just playing it anyway and sacking the exchange.
Yeah, but I didn't want to sack my exchange because you said, well, I like to attack a lot. So, as you said, I like to attack a lot. I do not want to get like a...
Under ideal situations.
Yeah, I do not want to... I want to get you out of your comfort zone so that you cannot attack a lot and see how do you react to those positions and see if you're constantly looking for attacking situations even though they are not good for your position. That's basically what I was trying to do. So... in this position I thought, no, I'm gonna try to trade some pieces, I'm gonna get into a more or less equal position, and once I am in a more or less equal position, I'm gonna try to see where is your mistake in your thought process, and why you should be or a little bit more aggressive, or a little bit more, let's say, play normal, or a little bit more relaxed in terms of these things, right? So...
those would be good squares if I never got to those.
Oh yeah, but... it is hard to get into those squares here, the pawn on f7 and g6, it's just...
with the pawns,
yeah. Sometimes in the Najdorf you have these ideas here, which might be a little bit annoying, but in these positions you cannot do that in dragons because the pawn is on g6. So, nothing extremely crazy yet. Knight b7, bishop c4, okay, nothing crazy. I think maybe better than knight d7 should be something like knight c6. But I played knight d7, I thought it was solid, nothing really crazy yet. Bishop c4, and
at this point, it was like these two squares here are great for your knight.
Yeah, also something that you have to consider here when I play queen c7, do not play bishop b3. You know, you said, well, I'm gonna play just bishop b3. Do not play bishop b3 here in this position. Play bishop a2 in this position. The idea is that when you're playing bishop a2, when I play knight c5, I am not threatening your bishop on b3. And remember that this is gonna be an open position, and you do not want to lose your pair of bishop.
And I do want that bishop.
Exactly. This bishop is usually really good because it is threatening these sacrifices here. Sometimes you even have bishop takes f7, rook takes, knight e6. I'm not quite sure. I do not think it's gonna fly in this position because I don't think there is enough compensation for the rook and the pawn. But sometimes you have those sacrifices, and I have to be really careful about this. So bishop d3, I don't think is the best way to proceed. Bishop a2 here in this position. Take advantage of your own move a4, and now you have a square here where you can go and stay there without a lot of trouble. So I do believe that instead of bishop d3,
yeah, after bishop a2 as well, a lot of the ideas on f7 become a lot stronger after bishop h6.
Yeah, that might be dangerous. That might be something annoying, right? But as you play bishop b3, then I thought, well, I'm gonna get rid of that bishop because I don't want anything to do with these positions here, because that might be dangerous in the future, like bishop takes f7 and all these things here. Of course, in these positions also I have knight takes f7, so it is not a threat yet. But that might be something. Even if you could play bishop takes and then knight e6, that might be something to consider. So knight c5, knight takes b3, knight takes b3, and now I have a really nice position. I have nothing here like extremely dangerous. Even remember that I told you before that I wanted to trade pieces so that you get into a more or less normal position. And when I play bishop d7, I thought, well, this is gonna be nice, nothing extremely crazy. In the move 13, you said when you took on b3 that you didn't want to ruin your pawn structure, which I think it's okay. I think it is better to take with a knight here in this position because of what you just said. You do not want to get your pawn structure damaged. I think that's a good way to think about this position.
Sure, I have potential for the c file, but you've already got a piece there.
I mean, I guess you can take with a pawn, but I wouldn't recommend you that, because if I get to trade pieces, and it's not gonna be so fine for you. Like, okay, you can take control of the file C, and that might be annoying for me. But even though that might be a little bit annoying, there is nothing clear of what are you gonna attack then. Even if you get to that position, like, yeah, sure, but where is the weakness? Show me the weakness. Show me what are you gonna do, right? In some positions, you create damage to your pawn structure in order to get initiative and to do this kind of things. But I do not believe that in this position it should be really nice. So knight takes b3, nothing extremely crazy yet. Bishop d7, finishing my development. I think my ideal position for my bishop should be something like bishop e6. But I didn't want to do that because you always had knight d4. Knight d4, knight takes e6, and that's not something that I want. So, as I can't play bishop e6, then one of my ideas was to... And of course, as you played a4, I cannot play b5 and play bishop d7. And as I cannot do that, then bishop d7 and bishop c6 makes sense, right? So I get my bishop active. I guess that's a nice idea here. So bishop d7, nothing extremely crazy yet. I was imagining that sooner or later you were gonna do bishop h6, but I thought, well, we're just getting into the position that I want to see because you told me I like to attack. And I thought, well, you are not gonna attack here. So rook c8, nothing crazy yet, just taking control of this file here, which might be useful in the future. Bishop takes, king takes. King h1, you said, well, I do not want to get any checks on c5 or b6 or something like that. That might be annoying, right? Yeah. So you decided to play...
b6 was the one I was concerned about, because if you were allowed to play queen b6 check, then you have this, and yeah, that could be a little nasty.
Yeah, I think king h1, it's something characteristic of this kinds of position where you play f3. I think it's okay. Because in some point, yeah, I might play queen b6. I think this prophylaxis here with king h1 is perfectly playable. Nothing extremely crazy. Which is more, I really like that you play king h1, because in the future you are saving yourself from some bad situations with this diagonal, which I think it's okay. Also, something which is not so cool about prophylaxis in these positions is that when you get to the end game, then your king is far away from the center in comparison with my king. So that's like the pros and the cons of king h1. Also, another con might be that you're just giving away a tempo here. And but in general terms, I think king h1 is something recommendable so that you avoid any tricks. I think it's totally perfect. Make sense?
Yes, makes clear.
Bishop c6, I just keep going with my plan here. I do not want you to play something like knight d5 too much, because then my position I'm not gonna have a lot of space, so I thought bishop c6. If you go with knight d5, I'm just gonna trade more pieces and see where we're going, right? Also,
knight d5 just loses a pawn at this point because of
oh
bishop
sure,
c6.
but I mean in the future, right?
Oh yeah.
So perfect. Knight d4, h5. h5 is, I won't say it's like a good move or anything. I will say that it's just giving this square to my knight in the future, and also sometimes during the endgame this structure is something decent for you to have when you're playing against like rooks and stuff. It makes it harder for you to take these pawns with a rook, for example, because if you want to take the pawns in this position here, it is easier if you have a rook taking this pawn and then it can take this one. If I have this position, it is harder for you because when you take this one, for example, then you have to do this, and if you want to take this one, then you have to do this. That's kind of annoying. Also, it gives a little bit of space to my king, and in the future I might want to push my pawns. So I thought h5 makes sense. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is a good move, it's just a move. Here in this position, I was thinking that you might take advantage of the square b6 in the future, because I was thinking about something like a5 and knight a4 and then knight b6, which might be annoying. So, and we're gonna see that in the future. Here you said, well, knight takes c6, get rid of the bishop, but you didn't give more considerations about the thought. You just said, well, I'm gonna take away this bishop on c6.
And I should have thought a little bit longer, because after I take, I immediately said, okay, just take with the queen, and that's what you did.
Yeah, but you have to be...
So I improved your queen for you.
And you have to be thinking also about why do you want to do what you want to do, right? If you want to take on c6, you have to have a reason. It is not just like, I'm going to take on c6 and yeah, whatever. You should have a reason. Why? Even if your reason is, well, I want to play f4, I want to push e5 in the future, and I do not want this bishop to be in this diagonal, for example. That might be a reason why you want to do so.
That was a little motivation for it, because I realized I can't push f4 and play e5.
Exactly. But
with your bishop.
But if you want to do so, you have to think about it, right? Like, just if you have a plan, which you didn't have to this point, you were just developing your pieces, and okay, which is not that bad, but it's alright, I guess. You should have a plan, right? If your plan is to do f4, e5, and kill me, then you have to try to go or to stick with that plan.
I actually have to play that.
Exactly. Stick with a plan, right? Because if you just straight here on c6, as you did, and you had a lot of time, you had 4 minutes, you were playing too fast. Because I had just
I would agree with that.
2 minutes, right? 2 minutes 41 seconds in this position, and
I've got time to sit.
Exactly, you have time in this position to sit down a little bit and think about what's your plan in the future, which might be perfect for you. Because otherwise, then you're just moving the pieces, and if you just move the pieces, and you get nowhere. There is a philosopher, he's called Seneca, you know, and I really like that guy. I think he's one of the coolest philosophers I have read. He said once that a person is not necessarily old for having many years, you know? If you're not doing something with a plan, then sometimes you're going nowhere, right? The guy said, you're not old for being old for just for your age, you're old or you're experienced for experiencing life. Otherwise, you're just old in numbers, but you're not old in life. That's kind of weird, and I do not know if that has to do a lot with this position, but I like to say weird things. So, in this position...
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was thinking another plan that I could have had was, instead of trading on this move, I should have considered maybe queen f4 with the idea of e5.
I don't know if that's natural. That doesn't seem natural in my mind.
Yeah,
because, first of all, if you play queen f4, then I'm just...
Then you've got, oh yeah.
Then I have a fork. And even if I didn't have the fork, I don't know if queen f4 is natural. I think that a better way to try to push their pawns might be with rook here, for example. Right? If you do so, then you have the the ability to defend here, for example, and then you can try to push your pawns and try to kill me. But then again, you have to have a plan. If that's your plan, stick with your plan. And also, if that's your plan, do not trade pieces, because if you trade pieces and you do not have anything to attack with, and that's not so fun for you. So
yeah,
if that's your plan, if your plan is to go and attack, stick with it. So knight takes c6, queen takes c6. I think that I accomplished my objective here of getting into a position which is more or less equal and trading a lot of pieces without giving you space to attack a lot, right? To get you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So rook f c1, and I don't know. I don't think this is a move which goes with the spirit of the position here.
Yeah.
Maybe this rook.
Rook e1 would have been better. Simply so I could play f4, e5.
No, and yet, even if you want to do that with this rook. Yeah? Because this rook here is out of the game. This rook here is in the center, basically. Because you want to do this and this, right? This might be like my idea if I wanted to win this position. If I didn't want to win the position, I will try to do something else, like trading pieces or whatever. So, if I wanted to defend this pawn, I will try to do something like rook here and rook here, so that the pawn is defended, and now I can move my knight. Also, in this position, if I want to attack, I want to bring as many pieces as the place where I'm going to the place where I'm going to attack, right? Because if I do not bring pieces and I do not have anything to attack, rook c1, I think it's passive. Because you said maybe I have something to do with the queen side and to attack in the queen side. But look at the position, right? In this position here, I do believe that attacking towards the king side makes much more sense. For two reasons. First of all, my king on g7 might be exploited in the future. Because if you get to open the position and to bring your rooks and to attack, then that's really good for you. If you get to open some lines and try to take advantage of my king here, or try to bring your pawn to e5 and then try to open the lines and try to do something about my king, I think that's nice. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is gonna fly, because of course I have my own moves to try to defend.
You got resources.
Exactly, I have my own resources. But that should be an idea, right? Like for example here, if you want to attack there, do that. Like if you want to attack here, do that. But if you're gonna attack on the queen side, then you have to think about another plan. Because rook fc1 doesn't seem like something attacking anything right now. It looks more like defending and getting your rook out of the center here to get into a more passive position here. So important, bring the rook which is doing the less towards the center might be useful. And yeah, that's basically what it is in this position. Now you play rook fc1, and yes, in my notes I wrote that it should be a mistake, or it's not good. It's when as much I do believe that this is kind of dubious, you know. So e6, the idea with e6 is stopping you from doing knight e5 or something, and also playing d5 in the future might be useful for me to open the position in the center. As you're trying to do something in the flank, it makes sense for me to try to do something in the center.
Play in the center.
Exactly. So a5, and he thought, well, he realized that with a5 he has knight a4 and knight b6 in the future, which might be annoying. So I was thinking if I could prevent that, and I realized that probably it wasn't so like dangerous for me. And I thought, well, if knight a4, knight b6, the knight looks really nice here, but I guess it is not the end of the world, and I can do something about it with the 10 piece that I am just gonna have. So rook fd8 and queen e3, and now you're one more time changing. Like if your plan is to do this, for example, a5, and to try to stick my pawn on b7 and to fix it, then you are having this square here which is weak. Try to exploit that. That makes sense. But if you play in queen e3 here, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I do not understand queen e3 in this position. Like,
yeah, in retrospect, I definitely agree that knight a4 was just a million times better.
Yeah, that's just an idea. I mean, you might have done something else, but I don't know. I mean, I don't like the idea of bringing your rook here, because now everything seems to be a little bit unnatural. Look how my pieces are in natural positions, and your pieces are kind of not in such a natural position. I mean, like the knight on c3 makes sense, and the queen here makes sense, but your rooks
Yeah.
That makes the whole position unnatural for me. So queen e3, I don't like that move for you, and now I'm just trading some pieces. Think, well, I'm gonna get into the endgame and see what's gonna happen. So knight e2, of course here I just have like a minute or something, because I've been taking a lot of notes and thinking about what you were thinking and how to correct that.
Yeah.
So I have just like a minute. And I thought, well, maybe I have to bring my rooks and try to finish the position with more exchanges and trading more things, so that in the end game I can see if you have mistakes or you can commit mistakes in the end game. So I thought, well, rook c8, c3, and look, now my position is still more natural, you know. Look at these rooks here in comparison with these ones, and this knight on f6, even though it's not doing that much, it might come to e5 or something in the future, or I don't know, I might maneuver it somewhere else, but you know, something might happen in the future here. So rook b5, probably a mistake, because after b4 then it's really uncomfortable to have this rook here, and you're playing knight d4, and that's something dangerous. So I think rook b5 should have been a mistake.
Yeah.
I had to play e5 because I didn't want you to play this. You thought, how can I exploit this position here? I might want to move my knight to a3 to attack it, but that doesn't seem good, right? And I like that you didn't go with that.
Here, I think I was saying that if you hadn't played e5, or I had been allowed to play knight d4 for free, your rook only has one square, and then I play h4 and it's trapped.
So I didn't want that. I thought, no, I don't want to die like that. I don't want to give away my exchange or my quality. And then you thought something that I found interesting, which is that you said, well, if I could put my knight on a3, that could be nice. But of course, then you said, well, that's not gonna fly because it's gonna take a lot of tempos. I got a lot of.
Oh yeah, getting my knight to here.
Exactly, like you said, well, maybe I have to move my knight to a3, and once, but it's gonna take a lot of tempo, right?
But it's a slow plane.
Exactly, it's not gonna fly. So I like that you thought about it, because that's something important. You know that this rook here is trapped, and you know that that's a debility, that's something that you can exploit, and then you decide that, well, I should think about it and try to create a plan about it, which was nice. I thought that was cool, even though you said, well, it is gonna be too slow for me to do this and all these things here to go there.
Yeah, that's slow. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
exactly
moves.
But I like the fact that you thought about it. That's not gonna fly, right? So f4, but I do believe that here you have to consider that I created a debility and try to exploit that too, you know.
Yeah.
Because, and also I'm not quite sure if you can play like rook b1 and now you're threatening this, and that's extremely dangerous.
Oh yeah, rook b1 and c4 also is a good
Yeah,
plan.
I was thinking about that one, but
I don't know why it didn't occur to me to play that in game, because that's a move that now looking at it is just blindingly obvious.
yeah, but also, I mean, I thought that if you played this, I had to play something like rook c4. So rook c4 stopping you from playing c4, of course, but that doesn't look nice. Now you have to maneuver with your knight to try to take advantage of my rooks, but I'll try to play b6. So I thought, well, probably the best way to proceed in this position is e5, just stopping you from doing this. And then I thought, well, rook b1 and maybe rook c4, but that seems odd for me, you know, that seems weird.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, maybe rook b1, rook c4. Yeah, it's hard to exploit it. Yeah.
I'd probably play here with the idea of my knight coming this direction, but that still looks
Probably
slow.
b6, right?
Here so
b6, for example, knight
b6
c1.
on this move.
I'll take here, and now my rooks are free. So yeah, it is still too slow to exploit it, but it'll.
So b6, I take, I guess, but then your rooks are getting out.
So it is not so easy to exploit it, but it look odd, you know.
It's something that could be exploited.
Yeah, maybe in this position it's not exploitable because there are not enough tempi to do so, but in some other positions that might be really dangerous, you know. So,
but noticing trap pieces is
yeah, do not get trap pieces as I did here. Not recommendable. So, From this time here, I had just like 11 seconds, so I had to play fast. F4, I thought, well, I'm gonna bring my knight here so that I can play f6 maybe in the future, and also I am winning some I'm winning some time because I do not have a lot of time in the clock. So I had to do this. I thought, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe b6 right now. Yeah, but I didn't do that. So knight f e8, f takes e5, d takes e5. And now, I think my pawn structure is really cool, and now you're getting this pawn here, which is not so good.
Yeah, I've got an isolated pawn. That's not.
Yeah, this is not a good pawn here. So, something that I notice in you is that you are not considering what's going to happen in the end game, you know? Because you're seeing the position right now, and you stick with a plan. Or you stick with an idea which might be something, even if the idea makes no, like, total sense. You stick with it, and you do not question it, you know? For example, here, when you said, well, I would like to play knight a3, and you have 4 minutes to think about this move, how to try to exploit this, you thought, well, yeah, that doesn't fly, I might do something else, and you didn't question the next option that you had. You said f4, and that's it. You didn't question, well, maybe I have another way to try to exploit it, rook b1, for example, or something. Or maybe I have to bring my king towards the center so that I can try to put my king in an active position, because we're just in an endgame right now, and that might be good for your king. Also, you have to consider that my king is a little bit more centralized, so that's good for your position. You just said, well, I'm going to play f4, and then you played f4. But you didn't question why f4 could be wrong, or why another move could be good. So you're sticking with the idea and not considering something else, right? So that's not good. And you have plenty of time to think about it. You have 3 minutes 55 seconds, which is a lot. So f4, I think that, well, I'm not gonna take because that activates your knight, and also I'm not gonna take because if you take my pawn on e5 like this, then my pawn structure is decent. I'm getting rid of this pawn, which is my debility right now. And I thought that might be nice. So, knight here, getting some time, nothing extremely crazy yet. Knight g1. And this is something that I didn't understand.
The idea was just to get it to f3, which is a better square than e2.
But even if you're doing so, your knight on f3 is not doing that much. Because I can play just f6, I guess, and I can defend everything. So, see that my pawns are limiting, are obstructing the moves of your knight on f3, for example. So that's probably not the best square here. Maybe thinking about another way to activate your rooks might make some sense, like rook a2, for example, trying to bring your rook to this line or something. Maybe bringing your king towards the center makes more sense. But your knight on f3, I don't know, it doesn't look nice for me. King g1 makes sense. So knight g1, I'm just trying to improve my position here. b6 because I want my rook to have mobility. And now I have to think about this one, because I don't like this rook takes. It doesn't seem good for me, because when I take, and this is something that you didn't consider either, because see how fast you're playing here. It took you 7 seconds, like 3 seconds, extremely quickly, and you have a lot of time. This is something that in chess sometimes we do when the other guy's in time trouble. You know, we think that if
we up our tempo.
Yeah, we start to play fast because we think that if we play fast, then the other guy is not gonna have time enough to think about a good response. That's usually good. I mean, that's a good argument to have in those positions. But the counter argument to that is that if you're not playing accurate, then it is giving the other guy better chances to do whatever he wants to do, right? So you might say that if I play fast when you do not have a lot of time, that's gonna make your flag fall. That makes sense. But also on the other hand, if you make the position easier to play, that gives the other guy some time to play. You know, if you simplify the position, then it's easier for me to play and I can play faster. So in general terms, you can play fast if there is no increment, because if there is no increment, then I do not have any option but to play it really fast, you know.
Yes.
And there are more chances of me just having a full flag falling, right? So rook takes a5, and now see this. Now you have 3 isolated pawns. Horrible. You have 3 minutes 36 seconds. You do not want that, right? Also, it is extremely easy for me to attack these pawns because my rook is active. You know, I can attack this pawn and defend my pawn here with rook c5, for example.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the pawn on c3 is kind of weak, and I am playing knight e3, and now I have to attack these pawns here. Everything seems to be really difficult for your position now.
Yeah, it seems good.
Exactly.
For you.
And you're not realizing this, and you're saying, well, I think this is going to be a draw. I agree, this might be a draw, but even if it's going to be a draw, you have to consider these things. I have advantage here. The reason why is evident. I have more activity, and your pawns are horrible. So, like in the worst case scenario, I will say that this might be a draw, but I have the advantage. You know, I have the advantage, and the one who is gonna be defending the position is gonna be you. So, if you have the 3 minutes, think how to defend the position properly, right? Now, see that I have 17 seconds, and before I never passed like the 10 seconds for a while. Look at this.
Yeah.
Right? For these moves here, I had to think more. And now that you're simplifying the position, I can play faster. 19 seconds, and suddenly I can play faster. And now...
I should have brought my king in before I played knight b3. I should have brought my king in a little bit further.
Exactly. Also, here you have material disadvantages now. Like, soon you're going to have material disadvantages. Like, for example, here, you have material disadvantages. Do not trade pieces. Trade pawns, do not trade pieces. Make sense? Because if you trade the pawns, then at the end you can try to sacrifice your knight for my last pawn, for example, and then it is a draw. But if you trade the pieces, then what you're doing is that it is easier for me to exploit the debilities which it sits around and try to get even more advantage. So, trade the pawns, do not trade the pieces because the pieces are going to help you defend. Also, I have 13 seconds. If you're simplifying the position, that's easier for me to play. You know, the less pieces there are on the board, the easier it becomes to me. So do not trade pieces. Rook takes c4, do not do that. Knight takes c4, and now knight c5. Okay, you're trading a pawn. I think that's okay. Knight takes, and you said here, well, this might be a draw. And you have 3 minutes 41 seconds.
But I have to figure out how exactly to do that. I need to fix the pawns, get my king in front of yours, and then maybe get my knight for these two.
Okay, but see what you're doing now. You're planning. You're planning, right?
I was thinking too quick.
Exactly. Like, give yourself a second to think about the position. And if I cannot win the position, and you have 3 minutes 41 seconds, at least think about it. Like, I agree with you, this might be a draw one more time. Because, well, you can trade these pawns for these ones, and then sacrifice your knight for this pawn, and then it is a draw, right? But one more time, you're the guy who has to force the draw because I am the guy who has initiative. You have to stop me from doing all my plans here, which are something like this, and I don't know, push my pawn, bring my knight, whatever, right? Play f4, try to push things, and then kill you. That's my plan. Or that's my idea here. I do not have a really elaborated idea right now because I have like 12 seconds, right? So, my idea is simple. Go and try to promote this pawn. Or try to get him to trade this pawn for this knight, and then do not trade these pawns because in the future with this knight we're gonna capture this too. That's what I am thinking, right? I do not have a lot of time to think, so I'm creating some plan easily. But I like the fact that now you're considering what you should be thinking. Even if your plan is mistaken, or if your plan is not the best plan to proceed, you're thinking now of a plan. Have a plan. That's important. Here you're just playing out of inertia. Inertia? I don't know if that's a word in English.
Yeah, that would be a good word to describe it.
Yeah.
Just playing out of I have to.
Exactly. And I love if you play these positions thinking about them beforehand, before the position gets to the position where you're lost, right? So king e5, you said this is a draw, this should be a draw. You said this repeatedly. This should be a draw, and I go like, well, this might be a draw, but think about it. So king e2, f4, bringing my pieces towards the 8th rank to try to promote and to try to get you to make a mistake here. Your knight here is not that active. My knight here is a little bit more active than your knight, and also my pawns are coming, and I want to bring my pawns. Another idea that I was thinking of was maybe to play h4, h3, and when you took here, I might try to push these pawns, but I wasn't sure if that was gonna fly because I didn't like that idea too much. So I didn't know, because now I give you some counterplay here that might be dangerous for me. So I have to be really accurate here, and I didn't have time. So knight c6 check, come here. You're giving me some checks here, which helped me to a certain extent because you're not threatening anything with your checks. These are checks for inertia, and you're giving me time. So
yeah, I was trying to figure out how I could get my knight around so that I could take one or both of those.
Think about that here. Here you have to think about that. Do not think about that here, because that gives me a lot of time. You do not want that, right? Think about how can I get my knight more active and try to threat his pawns here. You have 3 minutes 47 seconds. Do not go crazy about it. Go like, yeah, I have 3 minutes 47 seconds. That means that he has to play fast. That gives me more opportunities. So knight c6.
Oh wow, knight, go back to there. Knight here maybe, because you take, I take. This pawn covers this pawn covers this one, and I'm attacking your knight, and if you were to go back with the check, I just go here and go to this side.
No, I don't think that's good, because if you use so, like for example, knight here, pawn takes, king takes, and I come here. And now I'm taking this pawn, and if you move, I can take, and even if you take here, I think I should win this position.
Well, would I want to take that knight? Should I just take
and now
that?
I'm gonna defend this pawn, and I'm gonna make this one fall. So yeah.
Okay, so would it work?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And even if that work, I probably will, like, if it is not the case, right? But if this work, I am not obliged to take, and I can move.
You can
right?
move.
So I do believe that it is kind of too much of a risk for you, because yeah, I think it's losing, but also giving away the piece when I have like 4 seconds is not something that you want to do. So knight c6, king d5, and now this is good for me. I had 4 seconds, and now I have 12, and you have 4 minutes, which is impressive. But h3, and now this is a really big mistake. You're just giving space to my king to go into your position, and that's not gonna fly.
I completely forgot that I wasn't defending that pawn when you moved here and thought this was mate.
Oh no, it's, and even if I can come into, like, if your king were here and it's defending this square, if you play here, I can go back. So there is no mate. h3, really bad mistake, because now everything is falling. And h3, king here, maybe no. And even if you play like king f1 to trick me with this knight f5 check, and I still have these moves. For example, king f1, I am coming here so you're not killing me. I can play something like f3, and it is not so easy to play with the white pieces. So knight f5 check, king takes, and this is just.
At this point, I kind of, and then that was just the nail.
But the weirdest thing here is that still in this position, you thought this was a draw. This is not a draw anymore. Like before, it probably wasn't a draw either.
Definitely not.
But here it is not a draw. You were thinking this is gonna be a draw, but dude, no, this is not gonna be a draw, because there are 3 passed pawns. They are connected, and they are near the 8th rank, and no, it's not gonna fly.
You've got your king.
Exactly, my king is really active, my knight is active, and everything is really good, so this is not gonna be a draw anymore. Before, it probably wasn't a draw anymore, but here definitely it's not gonna be a draw. So knight e5 check, knight takes e5, and yeah, here you resigned. But the result of this game doesn't really matter because it is just it's not even rated, right? So
it's more about
what you were thinking, right? Also, do not if you want to attack, that's nice, but have a plan. You know, if you want to do something, that's cool. Have a plan about it. If you want to take advantage of ability, that's right. Have a plan about it. Like if it is not immediate, if it is not tactics, then have a plan about it. Like for example, during all the game, you then consolidate a plan, which you could stick to, right? If we take a look like rapidly to the positions, you then stick to any plan here. For example,
yeah, bishop a2 would have been better with and more consistent with the theme of what I wanted to do anyway. Which is,
I think bishop h6 to bishop takes g7 makes sense because at least you're taking the pair of bishops and all these things. I think that's cool, but in general terms, you want to have the idea here. Okay, I want to do this because in the future I want to do this. I want to do this. You have to picture the ideal position, your utopian position, right? And then you try to get into that position. In real life, we have institutions to get into our utopian position, right? Which is like we have a constitution in our countries and all these things, and that's supposedly the thing that is going to guide us to the utopian society, right? The same thing you want if you're a medic or if you're a doctor or something. Your ideal position is health, healthy, to be healthy, to have people alive, right? What's your not ideal position? Death. What's your not ideal position of the functions of the state? Anarchy, maybe. So here it is the same thing. Think about what's going on the mind of the other guy, what's going on the position of exactly. So I hope you enjoyed this class, and
oh yeah, definitely.